Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna try and keep it quick, but it is one of my favorite topics. Hi, I'm Faye Farmer. I am the Executive Director of Research Development. Thank you. You guys are all from Biodesign, right? Okay, so the people in the room are from the building, so thank you for walking so far. For those of you online, thank you for staying in your office because it's terrible outside. We are recording this, so we might ask for questions online to be repeated, mostly because I'm not going to be watching them. Are there any other hiccups? I think that's it. So today we're going to learn how to create a responsive proposal. Interrupt me at any time, even if you're online, interrupt me. I have no problem addressing questions as they come. This is one of the simplest workshops you will attend. It's very cut and dry, it's very simple, but it will revolutionize how you write your proposals and structure them. I promise. So this is the order of our workshops. We crammed everything into the one semester to get you from figuring out who your sponsor is to writing a proposal, laying out graphics, all in one semester. So by the end of this, you should be able to feel pretty confident in the direction you're going. Today is creating a responsive proposal. And I just wanted to put a shout out that we're trying to do this next level of proposal development workshops for next year. This is all on a website, and you can get the slides. Next year, we're going to try and take it to, these are very fundamental courses, and they're all recorded and they're all available online. So if you miss something, please feel free to ask for the recording. LJ Hernandez is in the room, and or you can send a note to research development, all one word, at asu.edu. So the next 4 workshops are persuasive writing, done by Tobin Spratt, proposal management in my office, editing, writing 2, it's also called. That's done by Dana DeSoni in GEOS and the Global Institute of Sustainability, Julian Wrigley. Graphics and layout, done by Michael Northrop in our office, who has committed his life to graphics and layout. And then USAID proposal design. So figuring out how to interpret a proposal for USAID and actually starting outlining it. Pretty much doing this topic for USAID. And that one's done by Kellyanne Lauer, also a proposal manager in my office. So this is our website, funding.asu.edu. You can do a couple things on funding, and this is always our pitch. On the left-hand side, you have funding tools, limited submissions, which are consistently updated on our website. Limited submissions and internal grants is consistently updated on our site. Funding tools is a way to kick off this process, is to find what your opportunity is and your sponsor. In the middle section is find resources. You're going to use that probably less depending on the level of support you need or questions that you have. And on the far left, your right, is the research news, blog, and forum. So this is a forum, so you can click on there and see all of the past forums as well. LJ is super great about posting those and making sure that the videos are all updated there within a few weeks, if not sooner. The blogs are always posted of interest, news things that are happening in the research arena that we find interesting. Sometimes they're applicable to you. Hopefully they're more often than not applicable to you. Research Academy is how you found this event or registered for this event, so I just want to put a plug out for them. They also have this kick off your research module where you can actually click through and say, what do you need to do to get started? And then researchadmin.asu.edu is a who can help me. I want to point that out because every time you pursue a proposal, something for funding, you always want to notify your research administrator, no matter the size, scope, range, recipient. Always contact your research administrator. And if you don't know who that is, that little who can help me button will tell you who that is. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over content planning for your proposal, compliance for the solicitation. So you have to adhere to compliance or you'll be kicked out of the running. Responsive, so you want to make sure that you are actually answering the question that they're asking you to. And a comprehensive proposal. So you don't want to write just a technical narrative. You want to write a budget that also reflects what you're trying to achieve. So all of these things will be covered today. It's not writing. So we're not actually going to talk about writing today. Proposal construction is a stage into its own self. You must, I believe, in best practice, you must do this stage first in order to be successful. You can sit and write 2 pages of just blather or ideas, that's fine if that helps your system, but you must do this prior to writing your proposal. So, so we're going to call this technique a shell doc. That's what we commonly call it in our office. It will increase the responsiveness and ensure compliance with sponsored guidelines. Okay, so this is a quick trick. It will also help your reviewers quickly navigate and assess your proposal. So everybody, when you write a proposal, you will be read by subject matter experts or not subject matter experts. So the whole point is somebody's going to read your idea without you being in the room. So you can explain, oh, what I meant to say is this, or what I really wanted to say is this, or, oh, well, page 3 is really where I hit my mark. So that's what we're going to cover today. So construction fundamentals, there's 3 fundamentals: sections, content, and evaluation. Oftentimes, people will focus on content. When you're really enamored of your subject, if you really like your experiments, if you really feel like you have this great idea, you're just going to write content, which is fantastic. You should. However, that content must be organized in the sections as appropriate by the sponsor, by the guidelines detailed by the solicitation. So your content doesn't matter if I can't navigate it. And then you also have to keep an eye on evaluation. So the evaluation is, how are they going to measure you? How are they going to actually evaluate your work? Make sure that it's novel, make sure that it's innovative, make sure that you're trying to get what you're setting forth to accomplish. So you do this by reading the solicitation. And if you don't know what a solicitation is, you need to go back 2 or 3 workshops, and we'll show you how to find one on Pivot. So do that, pause the recording here, and go back. You also read all the solicitation. So you can't read just the first page, you can't read just the second page, you have to read all the solicitation. And that one's challenging because people often read about halfway, assume that they know what's going on, and skip like award conditions or IP caveats or something like that at the bottom, where they assume somebody else at ASU, their research administrator, just somebody else will read those. You should read them. You're effectively entering into a contract via that solicitation. It's in your best interest to know what your knowledge and what your intellectual property, how it will be treated. And that's oftentimes in the awards section. Oh, and then you read the solicitation again. Yeah, I'm trying to say something on this slide. Read the solicitation. And then you look for keywords, right? So keywords are must, require, should, will, may. What are some others? Like some keywords that you could do. Online, that question is for you too. What are some other, I said require's not on the list. What are obligated? That's a great word. You're obligated to demonstrate. Other ones? You can do something. It's strongly encouraged. It's recommended. those are less strong words. Recommended. Imperative. That's a good one. It's imperative that you demonstrate X. Yeah, those are all really good keywords. Well, guess what? You should be highlighting those, right? Underlining them, circling them, and then noting where they occur. So in industry professionals will actually have created like apps and computer software to go through giant, 500-page solicitations to pull out all the must, will, shoulds. But these are all keywords that are sprinkled throughout our solicitations that you should be aware of and key into. So proposal components almost always include a technical narrative, which is the body of what you're proposing. They almost always include the budget and budget narrative. So budget, just to be clear, a budget was discussed at the last workshop 2 weeks ago, and scoping your work. A budget narrative is describing that in narrative, in prose form. So a budget's just the numbers. Budget narrative is the actual prose. It says, I'm going to spend 10% of my time on this project, and I'll be responsible for doing experiment X, Y, and Z, or project X, Y, and Z. They almost always include a CV and biosketch or biosketch or resume, depends on how the sponsor qualifies it. They almost always include facilities and resources. So this is, again, our business as federal sponsors. So this is PAT for federal requests. Facilities and resources describe what's in the building, what tools are you using, what equipment do you have access to. Now, why do they ask all of this? Oh, sorry, and letters of support and commitment. So letters of support and commitment are things that people who will give you the time, the space, collaborations, if you have to go to a field museum, if you have to go to the field, who will host you? Who will take you under? If you're going to do a fellowship, do you do a letter of support or a letter of recommendation or a letter of commitment from the institute that you're going to do the fellowship with? So it really boils down to, what are you going to do? How much will it cost? What will you spend the money on? Why are you the one to do it, which is your resume? Where will you do it, your facilities, and who will help you? So this is really the crux of what a proposal should deliver, right? Not only should it deliver this, but it should convince the reader in a way that is knock your socks off awesome. You can do it with graphics, you can do it with clean writing, you can do it with what? To start out with, we're going to focus on organization. So they often include current and pending. If you're not familiar with current and pending, get familiar with things that you have submitted, things that you are working on now. Data management plans. How are you going to collect the data? How are you going to make data accessible to others? IRB and IACUC, which are protections for animals and people. So really it boils down to, what are you doing right now? What are you planning on doing? That's the pending. How will you manage your information in this proposal? And how will you protect your research subjects? Now, if you're doing cellular work, you might have to describe how you're going to protect your cells or what cell lines you're going to use. Okay, and then infrequently include the following: intellectual property protections, reps inserts, representations and certifications, terms and conditions reviews. But what this really means is, how are you going to manage your ideas? Who's going to own it? Who's going to deliver on the new ideas? What is the institution on the hook for? And that you have to know about too. And what will you owe the sponsor? So remember how I said at the bottom where there's awards data, or awards and how they'll manage the awards? What you will owe the sponsor might be intellectual property. It might be a quarterly report. It might be a visit to DC. It might be a book chapter. It might be a manuscript. But you need to read all the way through to make sure that you can deliver on that. And then known variables. What does the sponsor fund? If you go to the first workshop in the series, you'll learn about landscape analysis and figuring out what NSF is funding in a particular area, what any sponsor really is funding in a particular area. So go back and look at landscape analysis, but you know pretty much what somebody is funding based on their funding history. And guarantee you, if they've funded something in the past, there's an indication of what they will do in the future somewhere on their site or their strategic plan. And then you also know what a proposal looks and feels like. Generally speaking, each sponsor has guidelines, expectations, and an implicit culture of their proposal support, of what their proposal looks like. And the reason I say that is because people often figure out, like, you can do a content design and figure out where everything goes, but if it doesn't look like what the sponsor expects, you've missed your mark entirely. If you're too graphic, if you've got too much color, if you've not got enough color, these implicit expectations can be deduced from other people and other proposals. So it's something that you can use a mentor for. You can use other people's submissions, unfunded proposals, funded proposals. Look and feel is a generic term. So you need to know that, and you can decipher it. NSF versus NIH. Generally speaking, we work in two major groups. There's also NEA, NEH, and they have a wider range of expectations. Department of Ed has a different expectation. For example, Department of Ed, double spaces their text. So I still don't understand why they do that, but they double space stuff even in an electronic age. But you have to know kind of what is expected of you, and you have to become familiar with it. So this is very high level. This is not per every institution, every sponsor has their own grants and proposal guide. NASA has a million things you can read. NSF has a grant, GPG it's called. The NIH has a grants guide. And they also have workshops, national workshops on how to prepare a proposal, work with program officers. So NSF has NSF days regionally, and they have I think the national day, but I'm sure that they're regional. NIH has regional events too. Always worthwhile to attend if you can. So this is also something that you would know from looking at other people's proposals. On the left, on your left, is an NSF. On the right is the expectation, cultural expectation for an NIH. Now, if I told you that was the descriptions, project summary, you need intellectual merit and broader impacts, and then we're looking at the specific aims page, the third bullet down on the NIH list. Would you have designed that? Would you have known that the first quarter it has to be a description of the specific aims? Probably not, right? You have to go and figure it out. And even in the project description, I added that box as a graphic, and a lot of people don't include a graphic because NSF is so basic, like they don't want to. So this is a cultural norm, and you should know how that expectation is, and you get what that expectation is, and you can do it through talking to people and looking at previous proposals if you have access to it, and working closely with your mentor. But, oh, well, I'll stop there. So you want to consider the entire proposal. Your submission is more than the narrative. What are other ways to make your case? You can do biosketches, facilities, and letters of support. All of those supplementary documentation, all of that ancillary documentation can be used to make your case. So you shouldn't overlook it. You shouldn't get so enmeshed in your project narrative that you forget to ask your mentor for a fellowship letter. You should start immediately working on the checklist and figuring out what you're going to do and to submit. I need a facilities doc. I don't know what I'm doing for facilities. How do I get one? Contact my research administrator and say, do you have a facilities doc that I could use? Can I ask somebody? Who has the best one you've ever seen? Biosketch is the same way. Okay, so the unique variables are your discipline, your experience, and your voice, and that can be conveyed through the proposal and should be. So in order to increase your competitiveness, you must write well, which is the next 2 workshops. You must be applying for a sponsor that will fund what you are pitching, which is landscape analysis. You must have, accurate budgets and representations and scoped your work correctly, which is the previous workshop. But you also need to use your space to your advantage. You need to ask critical questions regarding the solicitation because you'll read that solicitation 3 or 4 times and you'll say, why did they put that in there? Solicitations take a very long time to develop. They take up to a year sometimes to go through committees and approvals. And one of the things you have to think about is that they craft those solicitations. They might be poorly written, they might be poorly organized, but they craft those solicitations for a reason. They want to ask those questions. They want to see you pitch back something that's competitive. So ask the question, why did they do it? It was not a throwaway solicitation. And then you also have to come to grips with what you can deliver and how you can package it. That 14 pages, are you only going to be able to fill 5 pages? What are you going to do with the other 10? Can you come up with a plan to figure out what the other 10 look like? If you have a propensity for long-windedness and you have 25 pages that needs to be cut down to 10, what is that going to look like? So the idea is deliver what they want as part of the solicitation and your great idea to hit the sweet spot. That's easy, right? No problem. Okay, so how do you do that? An industry term is stripping the solicitation. You deconstruct the solicitation into required sections. Remember how I said sections, content, and evaluation? Identify the content requirements, second step. Connect content with the review criteria. This is easier said than done, because oftentimes the review criteria may be missing, might be in a different document, might be implied. For NSF, they only post the review criteria mostly for the intellectual merit and the broader impacts at the bottom, and it's a regurgitation of the standard for those evaluations used NSF-wide. So you have to figure out if you're meeting that evaluation and where you put that evaluation in. Sometimes it's very easy. They say this proposal will be reviewed on the following 5 aspects. And then if applicable, you'll want to assign responsibilities for delivering that proposal. If you're in the business of proposal management, like I am, you would say, I want pages 4, 5, and 6 to be assigned to this person. I want a paragraph on each of these things. But if you're in a single PI or if you're working in a smaller group, you might just say, I'm going to write all of this together. And I'm going to be responsible for my own resume and my own letters, my own facilities, everything. Okay. So I'm just going to point out again, sections, content, and evaluation. These are the 3 primary things that you look at when you're reading a solicitation. You've already opted to pursue it for the most part. You might decide not to write a proposal after this and might get forlorn at the amount of work, but this is the way you evaluate the work. Okay, so how do you make a shell doc? And I'll show you examples. So I'm just going to let you read this for a second. If you do not know how to not modify a normal style, that's fine. You just set up your font the right way. Okay, you'll notice that I use black font, blue font, and red font. I honestly don't care what color font you use, but this is a good way to think about it. So black font, because you're just going to keep it. Those are the sections. Blue font, it indicates that something you'll get rid of eventually, but it's less threatening than red. The blue is, yeah, put your ideas here. This is what that content looks like. And the red font is, this is how we're going to measure you. That's kind of why it's red font. But I'm not consistent in any way. Okay, examples. For those of you online, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so I'm going to start with this, which is MURI. So the MURIs are kind of complicated. And my caveat is this is only really interesting for complicated proposals. But my other thing is, look at how many pages. This is 69 pages. So at least 3 of us read this whole thing from front to back multiple times. So if you think your job's hard, stand in line. Because I actually like reading these solicitations, and that's not a problem, because I like to see how the federal government worked through what they were trying to ask you. But it's part of our job. We really enjoy it. You should read all the way through 69 pages if you have a solicitation for 69 pages. But this is a fairly high dollar, complicated thing. So you'll scroll through and you'll be distracted by all these deadlines. And I don't want you to think of deadlines yet. That's not this workshop. We're looking at just proposal construction. So I'm going to look at, do they bookmark it? Yeah, that's okay. So here we look at, so we're looking at all 69 pages. And here we have application review, application submission, content and format of white papers, and application. So here we have 2 sections that I'm really interested in, the content and format of white papers and the evaluation criteria. I will read the entire thing multiple times, but we're just going to use this for example purposes. So if we're looking at the content and format of white papers, I'm going to highlight all of this section, right? But I have to go through here and then take notes as I read this section to say, also mark each sheet of data that applicant wishes to restrict. Titles given in the white paper should be descriptive, there's my keyword, should be descriptive of public basic research. Applicants, blah, blah, blah. You know, so I'm looking through all of this. Do not submit white papers, but wish to submit proposals shall document. No. And we go through it. But I end up, yeah, this is it. Yeah, so I'm going to view. Okay, so then we created the shell doc. Now Haley did this and did a great job. So she created her own way of deciphering with her own key. So she went through that entire solicitation and then went through me and we did another one and then it went through another person who's actually proposal managing. But this is how she decided green was going to be review criteria, less intimidating. But she also added page limits. So here's the content. This is all the content you need to include. This is my section. And there's no page limit. So I've actually told you, don't worry about it. Just put whatever you need to down here. Proposal abstract, 4,000 characters is my page limit. And here's my content. It must identify the research. Use only characters that are available. Do not include proprietary or confidential information. So it tells you all the requirements, not so much. I think this one sentence is the entire take home of that section. The rest is just, you need to be aware. Okay, and then table of contents, no page limit, we don't put anything in. But do you see that? There's a page separation. Technical approach, I have 25 pages for technical approach, project schedule, and management approach. However you want to divvy up that 25 pages is up to you. As you get mature, you can actually do a page budget in concurrent to this. Here's my content. Here's my review criteria. Criteria 1, 2, and 3 are equally important. So here I've said 1, 2, and 3 are all, you're being evaluated on all of these. Can you manage this? The availability of funds? No. So I'm going to not pay too much attention. Relevance, potential DoD relevance and contribution to the Department of Defense. Absolutely. I'm going to write all of my sections with that in mind. And this overall scientific and technical merits. Absolutely. I'm going to write that entire section with this review in mind, this review criteria in mind. So Haley does this really nice thing. Subsection headers are not provided, but based on the required content, you may consider adding the following subsection headers. So she's actually gone out on a limb and said, I've read this solicitation, and I think maybe you could organize your 25 pages in the following ways, or not even 25 pages. There's my project schedule, management approach, because they are called out in the section. Look, she's done it again. She's like, well, why not required? You can go ahead and explain them down here. And then list of references, no page limit. So, and then letter of support. They actually talk about what you include in the letter of support. And then a little bit of a requirement there. Curriculum vitae. And that's it. So really we have a giant shelf, 25 pages. You can fill it however you want. Something to think about. And I can send this out as an example. Okay, so that's number one. That was DoD MURI. For this one, for SAMHSA, I didn't do this one and I'm really not familiar with it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But something to think about is, again, it's super complicated here. So we have required application components, application submission requirements, funding limits, evaluation criteria. Again, it's pulled out. It's very clearly stated is what I'm saying. That doesn't often happen for you guys. So if I've gone through required application components, oh look, there's a budget. It starts with a budget. Terrible. That's awful. That's okay. We can go through. Oh, look, there's a project narrative and supporting documentation. So obviously budget's pretty important because it's first, and then project narrative, and it'll go through exactly what you need. Budget justification and narrative, attachments 1 through 5, and then these are each of the attachments. Okay, so she's read all this. Erica did this. She did the SAMHSA project. And look, so that entire, how much was that? How many? It was, oh, so it's 92 pages. That 92 pages got boiled down to this 10-page proposal. And look at all content. There's no review criteria in there. And it could mean she didn't get to it. It was separate. It was dealt with separately. But she knows exactly what she needs to write in. Now, as you develop your content, right? So this is 15 points, approximately 1 page. Oh, here, no, there's a review criteria. So she would add in what they're reviewed on. As I write, all I need to do is take that, cut it out, start a new section, start writing. And then what I want to do is, for my review criteria, I want to add a new comment and I want to paste it there. So I never lose that review criteria. So I can always refer back to it. I'm going to take this, I'm going to make it less bold. I'm going to say, and I'm just going to write my text, right? And I'm going to try and make that as normal as possible. Whatever the color is, right? So I know exactly what I'm writing to in each section. Okay, so that was SAMHSA. And we put in for that proposal. NASA is its own little beast. Again, it's 29 pages. It has key information. NASA is really great because it's written by engineers, so it'll be very specific and very specific requirements, and they'll tell you exactly. They'll sometimes give you crosswalks, and they'll say, if you put in this section, what are you going to put in this section? So here we have high-level requirements. Nope. Proposal review, administrative requirement. Here we go. Preliminary proposal requirements. Look, it's 1 page, 5 pages, 1 page. Oh, isn't that great? They've told me exactly what I need. I love NASA. So what we did was we created this item. I think I created the full proposal shell document so that they could then work towards that 6-pager. So you'll see that I use styles and I can create the headers. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it allows you to navigate this document pretty easily and update it as necessary. But here I have all of my review criteria. One important thing to note is that review criteria are mobile, as long as you can put them at the end, in the middle, wherever you want, but it has to reflect where you think you're going to be evaluated. So that brings us to an actual NSF. So if you do nsf.gov and you find a solicitation, and again, there are other workshops that you can use to do this. But if you get really good, you should be able to, let's do this astronomy and astrophysics. So I've gone to NSF, I've looked on the funding, this is my solicitation. These are my program guides, my program contacts. If I have any questions, I'm going to send Dr. Gupta and Fan an email. Here's my deadlines. I got all that. That's fine. I know I'm totally going after it. I've looked, I've done my research, and I've looked who's been awarded in the past. I know what all, 3 or 4 abstracts look like. I've compared my ideas to them. I know that it's a go. I've talked to my mentor. I know for sure that I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to open up this PDF and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to read the solicitation and see how am I going to structure my response based on what Faye told me. And all those workshops I attended all semester. How am I going to do this? So again, I'm not looking at deadlines. I'm not looking at any other items. I've decided to go after this. I'm assuming I'm eligible and then I can do all of these other things. So here, proposal. So letters of intent are not required. That's important because I don't have to write anything. Preliminary proposal, not required. Don't have to write anything. Full proposals. Oh, there's that grant and proposal guide. Maybe I should go and look at that. So I'll go and commit that to memory. Or I might talk to my research administrator and make sure that I understand what the content is. You can look at it. It's not hard. It's not a hard read, and it's all electronic, and you can click through really easily. So I'm not going to look at budget information because that was last week, 2 weeks ago, semester, the workshop. So here I'm going to look at proposal preparation and submission instructions. Proposers may opt to submit proposals in response to program versus application preparation for fellowship. And as I go through, so I'm going to read this entire solicitation, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to read this section again, and I'm going to start looking for must, should, or required, and then I'm going to start pulling out pieces. So remember how I said that there was a 15-page limit? I'm going to, generally speaking, NSF has 15 pages. I'm going to make sure that that's true here. Here I have a project summary, not more than one page in length, describing the applicant's research and education plan. What is the content? What's the section header if I'm looking at just this line? Project summary is the content. Section header, thank you. And then what's my content? What I'm going to include, right? In blue font, I'm going to put in, and I can make this bigger too for those of you online. Maybe I can't, maybe I can. I'll put it. Okay, so what am I going to put in that section? I know for it, content is not more than 1 page in length, so that's not what I'm addressing. But what else am I going to do? Yes! You just copy what I have there, highlighted. And literally, it's that easy. Okay, so I've created my section header. I've gone and cut and paste, and I've pasted, importantly, without text. So let me just show you real quick. Control-C. It's a nice little trick. I'm going to do no. And you think this is dumb until you see, oh my gosh, she's so right. When I paste it, I want to paste it without keep text only. And then you're going to have to go through and do this, but it preserves all of the formatting that you might have in the section. So if I've created this as a style or some other formatting, because we know that NSF prefers, I've done my research and I know that Times New Roman is the bomb diggity for NSF. I'm going to go for 12-point font. Here's a trick. Go for 12-point font. You can always decrease the font when you find that you're over the page limits. Right? But 12-point is really the most mature font you can get. And for old people, that's important. I say that because I'm old, not because I'm your audience that are old people. Okay, so here we have, I've created my first one, project summary. And then I can put this not to exceed 1 page. Here I have my bold. I'm deciding on my rules, and I'm going to make this. I'm going to create this. I'm going to say bold, black, font equals section headers. Okay. Then I'm going to say this is my page limit, and I'm going to make this. Again, I don't really care. You can make it blue, and you can say blue font equals page length or requirement, and then you can have this. I would not do highlighting, I just do different colors. Green font equals content required. Now, you can, if you really know Word, and there are some people who really love Word, you can totally have a great time with all of these styles up here and change them however you want. I find it is a waste of time, but that's just me. Yeah, there's a question?
This may, you may not have encountered this. If you have, does anyone ask about LaTeX templates? Do you encounter people?
Yeah.
Not
No, LaTeX is LaTeX. Okay, the question is, has anybody ever asked about LaTeX templates? And we have some familiarity with LaTeX, and it's not our favorite to work in. Yeah. So I think we work on one LaTeX proposal a year, maybe. There's no good way. I mean, I know people who have tried lots of different things, but and I know somebody who has an opinion on all of it. So his name is Tobin Spratt, and you can email him. But yeah, there are challenges by discipline as well.
Every time I ask about this, even with people who use LaTeX, they're like, don't even bother because everyone uses Word. You might just get rejected just because of.
So that's a good point. You might get rejected because of some formatting weirdness, right? And so that you don't want that to ever happen because you've spent all these 50 plus hours writing this stupid thing to go in, and you don't want to compromise it at all. So if you can put it all, shove it into Word, perfect. I'd try that. Okay, so then the next test is project description. That's my next section, right? Not to exceed 10 single-spaced pages. So here we've got two requirements, 10 pages and single-spaced, which is weird that they have to say single-spaced, but okay, we'll let it slide. And which must, keyword, include the following information. So it's not rocket science. My next section is project description, and I pull this all up, and I have a question for you, though, at the end of this. So if I say project description, and I cut and paste all of that in there, what can I do with this content now? Can I subsection it out? Is it something that's reasonable? Do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm asking, I guess, online? Do you see subsections in this content? Yes. Danae has, she says yes. Open, empty, rhetorical question. Okay, a coherent plan for research and education. Articulate to a level of detail suitable to an NSF grant proposal. Oh, wait. So, and that's a pretty high bar, by the way, an NSF grant proposal. What they're saying right there, that's the implicit requirement. The implicit requirement is you need to be taking this seriously and make it look like an NSF grant proposal. So that might be section 1, in which case we say research and education plan. Booyah. And you can make this section, whatever header, whatever designation you want. You can do 1, you can do a Roman numeral, you can do whatever you want. Or you can just keep it bold. In this case, if you want to do a subsection header, you can do bold and italic. There was a workshop where I told people that don't go more than 3 ways of, don't mess with your font more than 3 times. That's the other golden rule. So you have a bold, black, and italic equals subsection headers. Okay, let me get rid of that one. And then that's my content. So what color is my content? Green. So I just change this to green. So you get the idea, right? And then my next section is justification. You can just say host, institution, and you know, even if you wanted to buy some time because you couldn't fill up all those 10 pages, you could even do, this is kind of just a trick, you could say collaborating scientists. Okay, one other way, and I'm gonna, this is maybe Danae can do it too, but if you wanted to convey this information. If you were just going to one host institution, but you're working with 5 scientists, another way to do this would be a table, right? Or you could say, or you want to describe the lab. You want to, remember, use all your space smartly and competitively. If you just mail it in, say my host institution is University of Michigan. Well, how are we going to know what's special about that? Again, that's starting to think through what's on the page. So a detailed justification, you can do this. And then you can do identification of collaborating, or you can make it into one whole section, up to you. But you got to think creatively about how you're going to parse those 10 pages. Again, mentors, facilities and resources. Oh, look, this is the perfect solicitation. I totally just pulled this off the shelf. And career goals. Okay, so that would be a section. So now I'm going to insert a page break here. I've got my 10 pages. I'm going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm going to go through and make sure I have all of that. Now, here's another requirement that I have to, so now I think I'm done, right? I've got all of my sections. But no, indeed, I just read that I have to, in separate statements, address both NSF merit review criteria, often a common requirement for NSF. So now I have to go back, create additional subsections for merit review criteria, merit review and intellectual merit, intellectual merit and broader impacts, 2 sections to be included as explicitly in this 10 pages.
Okay, so I think you just answered it before I started asking. So that's inclusive to the 10 pages.
It's always inclusive to the 10 or 15. It's always inclusive to the page limit. And then how you organize it completely depends on your culture and how you've been trained. So, but they must have a called out section. Like biologists would answer it a different way and organize it a different way. So you might actually want to go back into your 10 pages and say, where does that intellectual merit and broader impacts appear? In this case, I would actually have a discussion in my head or with somebody around me, depends. Research and education plan, you could add that as part of your broader impacts. If you were going to do any kind of outreach or any other training of undergraduates, that's a research and education plan. That's a broader impact. And so it rolls quite nicely to there. You actually don't talk about, this is just a fellowship, so I don't know. Research and education plan. Oh, so your research may be just okay, so here's subsection. So you could do research plan and education plan. So now I've answered my own question, right? I might want to call out my research separate from my education plan and then add broader impacts underneath that. Therefore, I can include intellectual merit in my research plan because usually intellectual merit's attached to what you're trying to research. Okay? So you want to play with it and figure out how you're going to parse out that 10 pages. Remember, the only requirement is it's 10 pages and you include the green. Budget, current and pending, all of those pieces need to be added to the bottom of this. Data management plan, facilities and equipment, those are all our section heads. Letters of commitment, section header. This was an important letter of commitment should not reflect a letter of support. This all goes into that shell document so that you can reference it for later. And then no other supplementary documentation is provided. Oh, that's important too. Oh, that's fine because it's a fellowship. It's just for you.
It would be, I will help this person do, I just say like someone from the genomics core. We are set up to do these things. Like Jason Steele did.
They say, hey, we will host. So a letter of commitment. The question is, a letter of commitment should just simply state, if funded, we will work with this person. It shouldn't say they are so smart and we can't wait to work with them. And in fact, sometimes they have prescribed letters that you have to actually follow to the T, depending on your sponsor.
These things all have to be on the right letterhead.
It's recommended, yeah, with signature and PDF. But usually these are open letters. So they say the NSF is the drive for NSF. So letters of commitment oftentimes don't help you in NSF's terms because they're so prescribed. But NIH has a lot more variability. So you can actually bolster your argument a little bit more in NIH letters of commitment or support, depending on, and again, culturally, they call them different things. Okay, so I still haven't done any review criteria. So I'm going to read all the way to the bottom because I'm not familiar with this organization. So merit review principles. Here is your review criteria for merit, hold on, so I'm gonna read it. Yeah, this is your entire review proposal. Your entire proposal should meet these review criteria. So it's up to you to you have to decide where these merit review criteria go into that text. Here's the 2, intellectual merit and broader impacts. Oh, no, that's not. The following elements, these are all kind of standard. Additional solicitation specific review criteria. In addition to the above criteria, the following factors will be used in the evaluation process. These are important, and I had to read all the way to page 9 of the solicitation to get there, right? So you want to spend all of your time and effort talking about your qualifications and your potential for continued professional growth and leadership. So you could do that in the 10 pages if you have time and energy, but where else could you do that?
In your CV?
Correct, in your CV. Qualifications and stability of the proposed host institutions. Where would you put that? That we're in that section that we were just deciding whether it's supposed to be a table or a narrative, or if it's the host institution and the justification for the host institution. So it's a review criteria. So I actually, in my 10 pages, I'm looking at spending more and more time on that host institution. And the scientific and educational collaborations proposed. So was that an actual section requirement or a content requirement? I don't remember seeing it. Granted, I'm kind of skimming. But I'd actually go back and say, okay, that's what I'm going to be reviewed on. I'm going to make sure it's in that section where I'm talking about my host institution. And then prospective benefits to the applicant, the scientific discipline, and the activities of host institutions. So the benefits are very vague. So you can do a couple of things. You can talk about benefits in each section. You can lead your whole section with benefits, which is the next workshop. Persuasive writing is all about benefits and leading with your benefits. But because it's so vague, you can sprinkle it throughout your shell document. But that review criteria needs to be in some designation of font so that you know it's a review criteria. And that's it. Those are the important parts of a solicitation as you construct your proposal. And that will get you where you need to go. And I took the whole darn hour. I'm sorry. Totally didn't expect to. I just really like this topic. So you have 8 minutes. Any questions? I can share the examples with you, but it's not hard. Right? You just have to read that solicitation. Of course she does. Deny? That's okay. I have to practice her name too.
Do you use an existing shell document or do you make a new one each time?
That's a great question. I make a new shell document each and every time. And the reason that I do that is because our sponsors vary significantly. And so that the font is going to change. The expectation for graphics is going to change. So I don't know if you need to start with a new shell every time. I just think it's easier with a clean slate. So NSF, you're generally going to have like 15 pages. You're going to have a project summary. NIH, you're generally going to have the 30-page, the 30-line narrative, 30-line summary, abstract, and then the 3-sentence narrative. And so those you can start probably with those already. And if you like a particular font, you can stick with that. NIH has 0.5 margins. You might even start with creating a template in Word that's either NSF or NIH. And the reason that I say that is because you can set everything in as like 12-point font, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins all the way around. And then your headers can all be bold, and then your subheaders can be bold and italic. And then you're done, and that's your NSF template. If you go into your NIH and you set up the Word template there, it would be 11-point Arial and 0.5 margins all the way around, and your headers are going to be different. Just a thought. I don't do that though.
2 questions. So first is, does your office suggest using version control when you're developing these things like Git or SVN?
So the question is version control, and I think it's an open question. I love the questions, by the way. For this particular activity, it's best if one person does it, and then it's vetted by another person. Because if you can read quickly, and we all know that we miss things. You can read through and miss a lot, and then you have to go through multiple times, but we see what's right in front of us. So I would suggest creating the shell document and then shipping it to somebody and saying, here's my solicitation, similarly to what we did with Haley. This works out well in our office because we oftentimes have multiple proposal managers working on a single solicitation. But in your case, you might want to just use a peer and practice as a cohort doing it over and over again, because it kind of becomes rote after a while. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and there's also software you can use.
Oh yeah, there's software,
So-
and I love the software, but you always have to vet the software.
Yeah, you have to. And when you're writing these things, and when you're writing code or something like that. My next question is about the reference guide, so the literature cited or references or whatever you call it, depending on the proposal. I remember going through these and then running out of space sometimes, and then my advisor told me to just condense everything and shorten the references to the author's names or
in-text citations. Yeah.
Or, no, I'm talking
Oh,
about
no.
at the end, because that was a place that the literature cited, we just had to gain space that way. Is that a deal breaker? Or I noticed that NSF, this document here that you just showed us in this solicitation, had a certain style. Is that a deal breaker for the?
So I will say that NSF came through with requirements for their references. They have full references, right, with the DOI. So generally speaking, and again, generally speaking, it's very specific solicitation or sponsor specific, but you can have as many pages as you want for references. Generally speaking, when you are limited, you need to prioritize those references. I want full references almost all the time, because then you lower the possibility of being kicked out for compliance issues. So if you have 3 pages for references, you just select the most hard-hitting references you can, and you cite those. The highest cited work, seminal work, you put those in. Now, in-text citations are different. In-text citations, and this will go in, I don't think we cover it in anything else, but in-text citations, it's a personal style. So social sciences tend to put authored year, and then STEM, you just choose a favorite journal and you follow that. So what's happened is that people have found the nice, like Cell and Nature have numeric in-text citations, and so you can use numeric, and then references can be full. I prefer numeric citations, and then but the software you use is completely up to you. But again, you're gonna have to vet. Similar to the software you use to parse a solicitation, it's an AI, right? So, or it's some kind of software, so it's not the thinking part. So you actually have to go back and double check all of your work in your citations, and it's worth doing. I hate doing citations by hand, I will tell you, and it's totally worth doing the manual, doing it through Write and Cite or whatever software you want, and no, I don't even care. But it's worth doing and then cleaning it up at the end and saving like a half a day to just clean it up. That's better than typing it out and tracking it over time. But again, we leave that up to the personal preference of the PI, and you will be schooled in that by your mentor, usually. But sponsors usually let you put how many ever references you want. And you don't want to overdo it, because then it looks like you're trying too hard. Thanks, Sylvie. Okay, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to send research development, all one word, at asu.edu a message, and come back. Tobin's going to do the 16th, and his is persuasive writing, and it's worth, he's a very good presenter. The one after that, actually, everybody's a really good presenter after me. If you need any of the other recordings, go to funding.asu.edu, and you can access them all if you scroll down to the bottom and look at past events. Thank you. Okay, thanks guys.